What is up, Packers fans, and welcome back to another edition of the Daily Draft, brought to you by Badger State Brewing in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I am your host and the publisher of Packer Report, Ross Uglem, and today we are telling a little bit of a sad story in the cornerback Ennis Rakestraw Jr. Not a completely sad story, but just a guy that I loved and a guy that I wanted to test well in Indianapolis and not move down my board. But unfortunately, that did not go the way that Ennis hoped. And I would assume, maybe better things at Mizzou's Pro Day. And the evaluation's not all about, the combine, as you'll see from, me not really dropping him that far down my board. He's just a guy that I wanted to be a Green Bay Packer. And in that sense, when we're talking about, kind of what happened to him in Indianapolis, that's the sad part of the story. I think he can still have a very good NFL career. It's just some of the things that the Packers want um, he doesn't have, or at least he didn't show that he had in Indianapolis. So, breaking down Ennis Rakestraw Jr., cornerback from Mizzou. Pros, he tackles really well. Okay, and he doesn't just not miss tackles. I'm not just looking at his advanced stats and saying, okay, how many missed tackles did he have over the course of his time at Mizzou? He hits people. He is a physical tackler. He's not only just a guy that doesn't miss tackles. He is a guy that he gets hands on people. He puts them in the dirt, and it's fun to watch. I mean, that's what you want. And I gotta be honest too. Like, even if Ennis had tested super well in Indianapolis, I kind of always viewed and sort of had really him and like Terry and Arnold as two of my top guys because of how badly I want the Packers to put a good player in at the nickel position. And I thought really from the beginning that Rakestraw was a nickel or could play nickel. And now I almost feel like he has to be. And that's something that we'll talk about both in Packers fit. It's something that we'll talk about in the cons part. But that is something that you want as a nickel player, especially if you're going to play a ton of single high and going to use those defensive ends. Sometimes even smaller defensive ends, like we've talked about a couple times on this show, where if you believe that Jeff Hafley is going to run the single high system and is going to run similar things to Robert Saleh in New York or D'Amico Ryans in Houston, well, they just made um, extremely hefty investments in 240-pound edges in Will Anderson and Will McDonald. I'm not saying Green Bay is going to do that exclusively. I'm not saying they're going to cut ties with Gary and Van Ness. I mean, eventually they are going to cut ties with Preston Smith. But the point that I'm making is if your edge players are going to be more spill players than contain guys, which is why you can get away with having smaller edges in a single high system where they're spilling it to your strong safety and they're spilling it to your nickel. Nickel's got to be able to tackle because he's not necessarily taking on a tackle or a pulling guard, but he's getting that outside run spilled out to him, and got to get the guy on the ground. And Rakestraw does that, and that is a positive for sure in his notes, in his what I am doing, whatever. Okay, good eyes, good instincts in zone coverage. I know that Hafley is known as a man guy, but zone still matters. I mean, even a heavy man at the NFL level is probably going to be 40, 60 man to zone. And I don't know that for sure, but you're not playing man every play. It's just not the way that it's going to work. Even as much as you want Hafley to be more aggressive, he's still going to run a ton of cover three. And it's actually odd how much quarters the Texans and the 49ers and frankly the Jets ran last year. So there will be some zone. Okay, there will be some zone. Probably some covers that looks like cover three at the snap would be my guess if we're talking about quarters. Okay, incredibly smart football player. Pre-snap communication is constant. Route exchanges are effortless. They're clean. Whether he's playing inside, whether he's playing on the perimeter, I was really impressed by that. I think he's got the brains of just a really, really smart guy. And kind of why I would want him as a part of that like nickel and safety group. I don't think he's a safety. I'm not ready to go that far. Not big enough to play safety, and that's something that we'll talk about. And but what I will say is he has I think he's got the football brain of a safety, and that is a compliment to a cornerback. And I am not saying that the I'm not saying that the corners are dumb. It's not my point. It's that it's a less taxing position to play from a mental standpoint. Your job is much easier and much less interchangeable, much less disguise, right? You don't get much disguise at corner. Occasionally you'll come on a blitz. Occasionally you'll show cover two and you'll drop into a third or a quarter. But safeties are quarterback in the defense, making the calls and disguising what they're doing constantly. And Rakestraw has that, in my opinion, he has that kind of football smarts. Does not panic. Does not panic. And I mean that like jumping routes when guys are coming at him, throwing head fakes, throwing shoulder dips, throwing all these things, he's not panicking. Very smooth in the back pedal. Does a great job of not freaking out, not going for fakes. I enjoy watching him in coverage. He's not making a play until it's time to make a play. That's a valuable asset for a cornerback for sure. Change of direction, excellent on film. We don't have any agility testing or frankly, the vertical leap. As far as his Indianapolis experience at the NFL Combine, but I would guess that the agilities are going to be okay. And that's just from watching him and the way that he changes direction. That is impressive on film. I won't be surprised if that's not, shown when he runs the short shuttle in the cone because I like his COT. So, for me, he's a twitched up athlete if he's not overly fast or explosive. And that was one reason too. Like, I don't think he's that fast. He didn't run that well. And I think that was another reason why, okay, I've got this physical corner. You thought he'd be big because I think, Mizzou was listing him at like 6'1", 190. He's not that. But you think you got a guy listed at 6'1", 190 who tackles his butt off, who might not be that fast. Nickel. Well, some of that is true and some of that is not. Versatile football player has done a ton of stuff. He had 125 plus slot blitz box snaps last year, as well as 330 corner snaps, wide corner, outside corner snaps. And he played 100 plus slots snaps in 2022 as well. So he's done a number of different things at the SEC level that you would want him to do in Green Bay. He is not just an outside corner that you're trying to convert. He is a guy that has played more than 200 snaps on the interior over the last 2 years in the best conference in college football. So that is a plus for sure. Cons, and why we kind of opened this prospect primer on a somber tone. He is smaller than advertised. And I think Mizzou, and I don't have it right in front of me, but Mizzou, I believe, listed him at 6'1", 190, came in at 5'11", 183. And that might not sound like a huge difference. Green Bay just doesn't do it, man. They don't. I've talked about this before, but I'll pull up something here where you look at all the corners that Green Bay's taken. And this is great work, as always, by my pal, Jacob Morley. Jake Stack does an awesome job always with us at the Draft Guide. But right here, guys, Carrington Valentine, 193, Eric Stokes, 194, Shamar Jean Charles, 184. That's the one guy. Then Holman at 196, Jair at 196, Josh Jackson at 196, Kevin King at 200, Demarius Randall 196, Quentin Rollins 195, Dimitri Goodson 194, Devon House 200 pounds. They're not taking these little corners. They just don't do it. So when Rakestraw, you think, is a big corner at 6 foot, 190, all right, maybe Green Bay asked him to add 5 pounds, 6 foot, 195, we're cooking with gas, basically would be the same as a Josh Jackson, who they liked, as a Demarius Randall, who they liked. And we're not comparing them necessarily as football players. You'd like him to be a better pro than Josh Jackson and Demarius Randall. But body types, as in, will the Green Bay Packers take this player? I don't know. I don't know about that. Low snap total, sub 500 snaps in 2 of the last 3 seasons. They have to look deeper into it. I'm more of a just look at the film guy and then look at the advanced stats guy and then look at the testing guy. We go film, stats, testing. I'm not doing like a ton of like reading into, okay, did he have a 6-week ankle injury? Did he do that? Did he, whatever. An injury history is important. I understand that. But I can get it in the snap count and just wonder, okay, why is this guy not playing? Like, there are some corners that just don't come off the field and are playing 650, 700, 800 snaps, depending on how many, do they go to a bowl game? Do they go to the conference championship? There's corners out there getting a zillion snaps. That was not Ennis Rakestraw. And so, especially with the great season that Mizzou had this last year, why is he sub 500 snaps? Why, are they rotating in these all-world corners? I mean, Chris Abrams-Dream's a good player, and I think is going to be a pro prospect, probably mid to late round pick, but they don't have just dudes that we have to pull Ennis off the field to get this kid some run. I don't see that at all. Ball production, mediocre. That is for sure. Talk about a lockdown guy. You talk about a production guy. Rakestraw is a lockdown guy. Okay, he's more about limiting the opposing wide receiver than he is taking the ball away. 2 pass breakups and no picks last year. 1 INT in college. We don't love that. Again, almost certainly a nickel at the NFL level, in my opinion. Running the way he did, being the height that he is, tackling well, positives and negatives. Nickel's a valuable position. I don't see how he makes it outside. That depresses his value. Is it no value? Absolutely not. But I would not play him outside in an NFL scheme. Occasionally gets handsy and grabby downfield, and you can get away with that even less at the NFL than you do at the college level. So those are the things that we don't love. Packers fit, maybe none, and they're not playing him outside, and that's why I mean by the dream kind of dying is that I really wanted Ennis Rakestraw to be a Green Bay Packer. I wanted him to be one of this group of guys that I was super comfortable with them taking at 25. Unless he does some really, really cool stuff at Mizzou's Pro Day, some of the film concerns, and then just hey, the smallest corner they've ever taken, they didn't even take in the top 4 rounds, and that was Shamar John Charles, and they never gave him an opportunity to play outside, and they didn't give him a second contract. And that's when we do see Green Bay go outside of their parameters is they will take an Enagbare in round 5. They will sign Caleb Jones. They will sign Ladarius Gunter. They will do things that they wouldn't normally do from a threshold prospect profile standpoint, round 5, round 6, round 7 UDFA. Got news for you, folks. Ennis Rakestraw is not round 5, round 6, round 7 UDFA. Someone else will give this kid a chance way before Green Bay would start breaking kind of what they normally do and taking a 5'11", 183-pound corner. He's too light. He's barely tall enough, and he's closer to 4'6" in the 40 than they probably like. 4'6" is kind of that, hey, we're not doing that with a premium pick ever at corner. And then they like a 3-cone. We don't have a 3-cone. They like, I think, a sub 7-second 3-cone for corners. You look at Stokes, 6'9'6", Shamar, 6'8'1", Josh 6'7'1", Josh Jackson 6'8'6", Kevin King 6'5'6", which at his height was just the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. But yeah, that sub 7. Devon House, even a thicker, taller dude with a 6'5" 3-cone. So they like that. We don't know it. We don't know it with Rakestraw because he didn't run it, and Indy as many guys are not doing right now. Will they treat him like a nickel? Could Green Bay be interested? Could they treat this like drafting Jaden Reed, not a guy that normally hit their thresholds? That went super well. Drafting Amari Rodgers, not a guy that hit their thresholds. That went super poorly. Could they start treating nickel corner like they treat slot receiver? Because the last 2 nickels that I've been super underwhelmed with have been Chandon Sullivan, who was a practice squad. And look, they poached Rasul off a practice squad. So I'm not just saying that that's not a functional thing. But Chandon Sullivan was a practice squad guy from the Eagles that really, to me, never proved that he was more than a practice squad guy. I think he had one more bad season with the Vikings after Green Bay was done with him. And I don't honestly even know if he's in the league. If he is, he's not making an impact. And then Keyshawn Nixon, who I love as a kick returner, but don't want to see any more of him from the defensive side. I don't. And so if they're willing to start stretching some of the things that they like, maybe they would stretch it for Ennis Rakestraw. But man, like from a mental standpoint, and from a how do we think this is going to work standpoint, we really think that interior corner is where they're going to start breaking in tackle. The tackle guy, the guy who is supposed to tackle the outside runner. That's where we're going to break down and agree to draft a 183-pound kid in the top 100 when we just don't do it. I don't know about that. Will he test better at Pro Day? That's important. He's got to weigh more at Pro Day. If you want him to be a Packer, there are plenty of corners that are 185 pounds in this league that are fine. They just don't play in Green Bay. And ultimately, I think someone is going to take him before Green Bay will. That is my final statement on Ennis Rakestraw Jr. is that would I take him? Yeah, sure. Probably at 41 now instead of 25. But I would install him at nickel. Send him to Culver's. Get him a bacon cheeseburger. Get him a concrete mixer, salted caramel with cookie dough put in there. Beef him up. Get him up to 190. Go with God. I'd be all fine with that. Even running what he ran. But I'm not going to let him play outside. Okay, and so Um, that depresses his value. And again, I think just frankly takes him off of Green Bay's board. He's not big enough. He's not fast enough. We don't know how he turns. They haven't valued the nickel corner position yet. I'm hoping they do one of these days. I just don't think he's going to be a Green Bay Packer. All right. Overall grade. Rakestraw had a kind of a low round 1 for me going into the combine. Now he's got a mid 2. He dropped a half a round because he's not as big as we thought. He didn't test well. All those things. Well, like I said, those are tiebreakers. He moved from, I think, cornerback 5 to cornerback 7. They're not. People get on me, and I shouldn't just defend myself constantly, but like people get on me about being obsessed with testing. Okay, all right. But yeah, we go from Rakestraw being like a high 20s guy to a low 40s guy or a mid 40s guy. He's got a solid 2 for me. Would have no problem with them taking him at 41. I don't think they will. He is cornerback 7, which, by the way, he's now outside the 8. I'm a The Boys guy. That's the superhero kind of inversion of that trope on Amazon Prime. Great show. Do not watch it with your kids. But the 7 is the big superhero group there for the boys on Amazon Prime. And I had those guys. Then I added Rakestraw, and they became the 8. Now he's out of there, but unfortunately, so is Cam Kinchins. So now there are 6 defensive backs that I'm super comfortable with the Green Bay Packers taking at 25. And that group keeps getting thinner, though I don't think it will anymore. And unfortunately, Nate Wiggins is a stick figure too, and Green Bay's probably not that interested in him. Okay. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. If you're on the podcast feed, we appreciate that so much. How can you help us out? Because you're getting this for free. So how can you help us out? Buy the Green Bay Draft Guide powered by Packer Report. Use promo code DAILY, as in the Daily Draft. That is DAILY for 10% off that very draft guide. And follow me on Twitter. I'm at Ross Uglem. Check us out at Packer Report. Do everything you're supposed to do right here at the Pack a Day podcast. Like, subscribe, click the bell, get the notifications for all of the Packers content that you require. Have a great rest of your day, folks, and go Pack Go.